Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning everyone. Welcome to our very first day of our MUET webinar team, Outshine in English. I'm thrilled to have all of you here today. And let me start by introducing myself. My name is Nurhani Fashera, and I will be the moderator throughout this whole day. Today, we will focusing on reading. We are fortunate enough to have an outstanding English lecturer from our college, Dr. Chen Mei, with us today to share with us some valuable techniques and also tips to excel in our MUET reading paper. So let me start by introducing some of the background of our speaker today. So Dr. Chen Mei is a master teacher with 18 years of teaching experience in College Matrikulasi Negeri Sembilan. She is also a speaking and writing examiner for Malaysian University English Test, which is MUET, and master trainer for CAFR under the Ministry of Education. She has given various webinars on MUET test taking strategies and presented and published research on digital humanities and language, learning in book chapters, Scopus Journal, and proceeding at national and international level. So do note that we're actually gonna having our Q&A sessions after the sharing from Dr. O. So you guys that are watching can comment freely in the comment section, and we'll be choosing the question later at the end after Dr. O already giving her speech. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Oh Chen Mei.
Right, thank you very much, Hanani, for such a nice introduction. All right, good afternoon to all of you again, and thank you for spending your afternoon here. Although it's, afternoon is a time for napping after eating, because all your blood has gone to your stomach, and it's all churning over there right now, making you sleepy. But I just want to thank you and encourage you to continue to stay here. Thanks for being here, because I'll be sharing with you some tips on reading, especially because this is a very, very difficult paper, as you know. Sometimes reading can be it's a very tricky part, because the exam actually requires you to focus not just only on the text and on the words, but on your comprehension as well. And what the reading paper usually requires is your comprehension and understanding of the whole text, meaning that they want to know what do you understand from which point of view of the text, and perhaps the overall idea and the deeper meanings that are implied in the text. When I mention the word implied, it means that meanings that are not clearly written on the words, but things which you can infer. That's where the word inference comes from. So these are the few things that they want to look for. So some of the things that they may test you on would be strategies, or maybe on your skills in identifying things like identifying your main ideas, details, inferencing things which are sort of there in the text, and also a few other types of skills that they're looking for. I think all of these you might already know inside your books. It's already written and it's already been briefed by your teachers. So we don't have much time actually. It's only about 1 hour plus of the session today. So what I plan to do is to work with you, especially on the final parts of the paper, which is part 5, which is the gap text, which I will work on after this. And then later on, I'll work on part 4, which is text, which tests you on your abilities and skills in comparing and evaluating information from 2 kinds of text. And the skills that I will teach you, the sharing that I will make, will not only refer to only can be used only for part 4, but it can also be used for part 6 and part 7 as well, because it's the same kind of skills, which is analyzing the text for words, for vocabulary, and for ideas that may come up and which will be asked later on inside the text. All right, so without further ado, let us just begin with the first part. What I'm going to do is, so for now, I'm going to present with you a sample of a past year question, which was just, it's not even past year, it's this year's past question, which just happened just about a few months ago, a sample of a gap text. And then what we'll do is we will work on it and I'll teach you strategies on how to deal with that text. That will be the first part of my presentation. Then the second part of my presentation will be focused on analyzing the text from two parts of the text and comparing and evaluating information from there. Okay, this is also will be a past year question. All right, so let me just start by sharing my screen first. Okay, I think I'll need the moderator to enable my screen to be shared. I can see it up here, but it's not being shared. Can you please add it to the stage? Yes. Okay. So this is a question that was just recently over in July. Okay. So if you look over here, the first thing that you need to do, this is what we're going to tackle first. We're going to tackle the part 5 first, because I hear a lot of students wrong. I think that's the first thing that they tell me. All right. So it's very tricky. If you get one wrong, you get all wrong. So this is very important. Secondly, when it comes to this part of the text, right, another complaint that I get from students is that, teacher, sometimes all the answer options are the same. I don't know which is which because they look almost the same. They can fit into every part of the text. So hopefully by the end of this part 1, which I'm going to talk to you about the gap text, when it's over, I hope you'll be able to see better and identify better what to tackle in this text. Okay, so let's just go straight into it. I'm not the kind of speaker who, like talks a lot and blah, blah, blah. I'm a very practical kind of person. So let's just get straight into it. Okay, so if you look at this text, right, you can see over here, it says here, read a text about spices. Okay, all right. So the first thing you do when you come to a text usually is to read the question, because the question will actually tell you what the text is about. And this is very important because when you read a text, the first thing you need to do is tell me. So now you already know that these spices, if let's say you're not sure, you can look it up in the dictionary, but of course in the exam, you won't be able to look it up in the dictionary. If that's the case, then what you need to do is you just need to guess based on the whole context of the text. Usually, the text will give you clues on what spices are or on what that word is, because they know that it is not fair if they totally test the student just on that word, because many students may not know that word. So what they do is usually there will be some kind of areas where they will describe what is that word after that. So for example, if they put the word spices, later on you will see that there's actually a description about spices, which will be down here below. All right. So number 1, it's going to be about spices. Okay, the second step that you at all is to find out what is the paragraph focus on for each part of the text. All right. So firstly, overall, it's talking about spices. Then when you zoom in, you focus on each of the paragraphs. First paragraph, okay, what is it talking about? The main thing about spices. Maybe it's just an introduction. Secondly, like for example here, if you look at this second paragraph, it's talking about the purposes, various purposes. So you know that this text is talking something about the purpose of. On to the next paragraph. Okay, what is it talking about? All right, the next question is, how do you identify the what the paragraph is talking about, the main idea of the paragraph? Usually, it is always in the first sentence itself. The essay writing, right? Your teacher might have actually taught you before. The first sentence is what we call the topic sentence, which usually tells you the topic of the whole paragraph. That's it. That is what it means by topic sentence. Okay, the topic of the whole paragraph. So in your reading text as well, usually the first sentence will tell you what the gist of the whole paragraph. Okay. Usually, I said the word usually because sometimes it's not in the first sentence. Sometimes it could appear in the second sentence. Sometimes it could also appear in the middle of the sentence or at the end of the sentence. It doesn't matter where it appears, all right? As long as after you read the whole paragraph, then you ask yourself, what is this whole paragraph trying to say? All right. So this tip that I'm telling you, this first tip about, finding out what the paragraph is trying to say applies for all kinds of text as well, from part 1 all the way to part 7. So as you read, first of all, you read the question, all right? Then in the question itself, they will tell you what is the text about. Okay, then you underline or you circle. Okay, this text is going to be about, okay, what is it? So spices. All right. Then as you read the first paragraph, you make a mini conclusion for that paragraph. All right, this first paragraph, what is it actually talking about? Then you can jot at the side or you can underline. All right, then the second paragraph, what is it actually talking about? Okay, you make a note or underline the topic sentence. Okay, then the third paragraph, fourth paragraph. So in this way, you'll be able to understand the whole text as a whole. All right. So this will help you to read through the text faster. And while you're doing this, you don't have to worry about maybe not understanding certain words because what you need to know is to understand the whole paragraph. So if perhaps there are 1 or 2 words that you don't understand, or maybe the whole sentence, which may sound very, very complex and you don't understand, then it's okay. All right, you leave it first. You just want to understand the whole thing first. So when you read through, don't spend too long on reading the whole text. All right, you go through paragraph by paragraph, and at the same time, you just summarize. Okay, what is this paragraph talking about? Okay, it's about the purpose of spices. Okay, the second one. All right, okay, I think generally it's talking about the users. Okay, maybe the third one, maybe it's talking about how it is commercialized or how it is used to sell. All right, then the fourth one, okay, it's talking about how to eat it. All right, so you just agak-agak. All right. Then when you move on to the question, then that's when you look at the part of the text that is based on the question. So if the question is talking about the purposes, then you go to the purpose paragraph. If the question is talking about the users, then you go to the users paragraph. Okay, I know it sounds very straightforward, like very simple and easy. I know it's actually not very easy because sometimes the question may test things which are talking about the overall part of the text. Like for example, what is the author trying to really say, about the whole thing, or maybe what's the main idea of, or what is the purpose of the whole text. In this case, then of course you need to read from the front, from the top to the bottom, and then you identify what is it really about. And when it comes to these things, sometimes you may need to use your feelings, or you may need to use your emotions. If let's say the text makes you feel happy at the end, then maybe you say then you can look at the options, and then one of the options would be the author is trying to be humorous, maybe because when you read it, you felt that it was funny. Or maybe after reading it, you felt that the author was trying to warn you about something. Then you put there, the author is trying to warn you. All right. So I think some of these things were actually taught by your teachers before. Later on in my second part of the presentation, I will show you some example, some example questions and things like that, so that you know what kind of questions may come up in those kind of texts which are the normal text. All right, but now we focus on gap text first. Okay. All right. So, and also, if let's say there's anything that you're not sure, one thing which I must remind you, which I will also remind you later, is that you must always try to focus on these kinds of words that they may ask you. For example, warning. When it comes to questions like what is the author trying to tell you, right? Is it a warning, or is it an advice, or is it some kind of a suggestion? or some a call to action or something, you must always go and study all these words. So later on in my later part of the presentation, I will show you some example words. Go and study them. Okay, explain and things like that. So as I'm presenting, if there's anything that you miss, you can always screenshot later on and study those things. All right. So coming back to gap text, so after reading this whole text, all right, then you come to this part here. Okay, before you start reading the gap text, first of all, you underline the keywords, all right, what the text is about. Secondly, don't read the answer yet, because you only start reading the answer when the first question pops up. If you read the answer first, then you may not have an idea what the answer is really talking about. So the first thing you do is you read the first, especially the first paragraph of the gap text first. So let's read it together. So it says here, in early history, humans were recorded to wrap meat in the leaves of bushes, accidentally discovering that this process actually enhanced the taste of the meat, as did certain nuts, seeds, berries, and bark. Okay, from here you can understand that in the old days, they wrap meat, okay, in the leaves of the bushes. And then when they did that, they found out that, by using leaves of the bushes, it was able to enhance the taste of the meat. And so did by using things like the nuts, seeds, berries, and the bark. So basically, this first paragraph is telling you that, when they use parts of the plant, it was able to make food like meat taste better. Okay, just that. Okay, it's just telling you basically that. That's all. All right. So I've underlined a few words here. So it's not really important because the question does not ask you anything about here yet, but it just gives you a background idea of what this whole thing is about. Okay, next. Then it says here, over the years, spices and herbs. All right. So you have the word spices here already, which is related to what this text is supposed to be about. So now you know that these spices and herbs, they have been used for various purposes. Okay, when we relate it to the first paragraph, you know that spices and herbs are actually referring to this whole process that was in the first paragraph, wrapping them and making the taste of meat and things taste better. All right. So over the years, spices and herbs have been used for various purposes. And then it gives examples. Okay, so earlier, if you remember what I said about topic sentence, so from here you can see and identify that this first paragraph is telling you about somebody going to tell me about the various purposes of the uses of spices and herbs. So you underline or you just circle the word various purposes. So what purposes is it? All right, then we continue the sentence. It says here, in medicine, they have been used for their healing properties. Okay, fine, that's for medicine. And then they can also be found in cosmetic products. Okay, fine, such as facial scrubs and creams and spices, as spices and herbs are rich in antioxidants. Okay, fine. Then suddenly you reach here, the first question itself already. Question number 21. What is it about? All right. So now you know that this paragraph is talking about the various purposes. And you know that the first purpose they told you is about medicine. Then the second one they told you is about cosmetics. So this last line that has been left missing is probably something to do with some purpose as well. Okay, now only you go and look at the answer options. So I'm going to show you the answer options now. Okay, let me show you the answer options. Okay, right. After reading the first part of the text, then you immediately move on to the answer options. And the strategy to cope with the answer option is that you read the whole answer option and try to summarize again what you feel the whole option is telling you about. What is the focus of that option? And then from there, you will match later on. So we go through one by one, all right? And remember, you're trying to look for something that has to do with the various purposes for the first answer. So let's see if each of the answer options are related to various purposes. And if not, then what is that answer option about? Okay, so you look at the first one. They also last longer. Okay, here you don't know what is the day, but it doesn't matter. Later on, we'll find out. So they also last longer when stored in a cool, dry location. Okay, so this has something to do with something or something else, which we don't know because we haven't read the whole text yet. But you just leave it first. We find out what is this whole sentence talking about first. They also last longer. So something about lasting longer when in storage. Storage where in some cool, dry location. Okay, so the key storage. Fine. Nothing to do with various purposes, right? Because earlier it's saying various purposes. For medicine, it is used for this. For cosmetics, it's used for this. Then suddenly lasts longer. Okay, never mind. Probably not, but not yet. Let's go through all first. Let's see if maybe A could be the best one. Okay, let's look at next one. Spices also improve diet quality by making the food taste about your diet and something about making food tasty. Okay, so this is about making the food tasty, but you're talking about the various purposes. So yeah, maybe it is relevant. All right. Okay, so the word tasty here could be the keyword. All right. Use spices in batches so that they maintain their freshness. Okay, this one here, use spices, it sounds like some kind of instruction. It's giving you some kind of instruction on how to use the spices. So, whereas the different types and options that you can use spices for, all right, the purposes. So it was giving you a few examples. So this one is instruction, so cannot, and it's talking about something about maintaining freshness. Okay, all right. Next, in order to do this, you can use a coffee grinder or mortar and pestle. Okay, do this. Okay, I'm not sure what this is about, but it has something to do with a coffee grinder. Okay, something about grinding or making something lah, the coffee. Okay, probably not. Next one, if grinding your own spices isn't possible, okay, something about grinding again. All right, try to use alternative ingredients. Okay, so we don't know what this is about, alternative ingredient. Another way to distinguish between spices. Okay, so this is something about finding out the differences lah between spices and herbs. So let me just write down the word here, difference. Okay, so used as, if you see over previously, right, it was the keyword there was the various purposes. Various purposes also translates to how the spices and the herbs are used. So perhaps this could be the one. They are also used as a means to mask unpleasant tastes and smells of food and to keep food fresh. Okay, so it can be used to mask unpleasant taste of food to keep food fresh. Okay, so this could be an answer because also is a continuation of something. Perhaps in the previous text they were talking about, giving you examples of different things, and then finally in this one it can also be used as this. All right, so which of these is the best answer now? Is it the first one talking about storage or talking about making food tasty? Okay, you have the word here also. All right, so this could be a possible answer about making the food tasty. And then here instructions, I don't think so. Grinding, these two, D and E, about grinding, I don't think so. And then the differences, which the first paragraph doesn't really talk about differences. Okay, so now let's go back to the text again. I hope that we can remember what we have side. But if cannot, then at least hopefully we use our memory. Okay, let the other go back to the text. Okay. Is this Okay, all right. So we're back to here. Purposes, and it has been used for healing properties and can also be used in cosmetic products. So if you have all those options there earlier, if you had screenshot earlier, then it might be easier for you to move between what I see over here and then what you see in the answers over there. But otherwise, it's okay. Let me just move between those two texts. So you can see earlier, I've given you two different answers which I said were possible. Okay, I will just read it over here off screen. The first one was about the spices also improve the diet quality by making the food tasty. All right. So for various purposes, and then it says here in for spices and herbs, it's used in medicine. Spices and herbs can be used in cosmetics, and then the last one. If you look at option B earlier, it was only focusing on spices. So it is a bit, although you have the word spices, you see, let me just put this B sentence in. All right, at the last sentence, they can also be used in cosmetic products such as facial scrubs and creams, as spices and herbs are rich in antioxidants. Then spices also improve diet quality by making the food tasty. Okay, it's possible to put in, but then it's only focusing on spices. And it's suddenly talking about diet and making the food tasty. All right, let me put the other option in, which was option G earlier. Okay, so they can also be found in cosmetic products such as facial creams and then all the antioxidants. Okay, let me put the answer in. They are also used as a means to mask unpleasant tastes and smells of food and to keep food fresh. All right, between those two answers earlier, I would say that the last answer, the one in G, which was talking about, which started off with they, would be a better answer because it's giving you an example based on the above. So in the above, you say here it's talking about medicine. And then here they use the word they can also be found. So if I were to continue over here, just now, if you look at option B says spices also in diet, blah 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 blah. This here, they are also used as a means. Okay, blah. If you're not sure which one, you got to ask yourself which one sounds more correct. Because if you ask yourself which one sounds more correct, both are going to sound correct. Spices also sounds correct. This also sounds correct. But if you use the other method, which one sounds more wrong, and then you eliminate the one that sounds more wrong, it will be easier for you to identify which one sounds more wrong. So if you see over here, right, you have the word they are also used. All right, and then it says here spices also improve the diet. If you want to follow the strategy of consistency, the word day here and day here fits better. This day and this day, both of them fits better. All right, and then if you see over here, here only focuses on spices, whereas inside here, this tag gives you various examples of how it is used. Another keyword here is used. All right, and it resonates with the idea of the purpose. So the best answer would be G. Okay, all right. So this is the strategy that you use, and we will go through a bit more quickly for the other parts of the text, but I'm just showing you. So this is how you identify each of the sentences based on the clues that they have given you throughout the whole paragraph. And remember, the clue that they give you in the paragraph will always be something about the whole idea of that whole paragraph. Okay, so now we move on to paragraph 3. Let me just show you paragraph 3 now. Oh no, I think my face is stuck. You can't see my face now, right? I think my video is not moving. Yeah, but you can still hear my voice, isn't it? Okay, I've shown the screen. It's okay. My face is not important. Most importantly is that you see what I'm going to put on over here in the screen. All right. Okay, so now we look at this next part of the screen, which is the second part of the paragraph. All right. Now you see this word. Okay, in cooking, the word spice refers to any dried part of the plant other than the leaves used for seasoning and flavoring the recipe. Okay, so now this part here is going to talk about cooking. So you underline the word cooking, and then it talks about any dried part of the plant other than leaves used for seasoning. It tells you a bit about how this part of the plant is used for seasoning and for flavoring a recipe. All right, but there's something funny over here. It says any dried part of the plant other than the leaves. Okay, all right. So it's telling me that, it's just using other parts. And then it says here, you continue in the second sentence. So why not the leaves? So it's bringing your focus to the leaves only. All right. So it says here, because the green leafy parts of the plants used this way are called herbs. All right. So now there's a bit of some kind of I won't say it's a debate. It's a kind of distinguishing part here. All right, it's talking about the word spice, and it's talking about how it refers to dried part of the plant. But then for leaves, okay, it is called herbs. And then you continue in the sentence. Every other part of the plant, including dried bark, roots, berries, seeds, twigs, or anything else that is not the green leafy part of the plant, is considered a spice. So the spice would be all the other parts of the plant. Okay, all right, here. Then it says examples. All right, so you come down here. Examples of spices include cinnamon, which is the bark of the tree. Cardamom is an example of seed pod. All right, so far over here, this part of the sentence and up to this part of the sentence tells you what leaves are. All right, leaves are called herbs. And then whereas this part here, any other part of the plant, all right, blah, 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 all the way to cardamom is an example of a seed pod, while allspice is dried berry, cloves are actually dried flower buds. Okay, all the way, all this part here tells you that these are all spices. And then this part here tells you all about the leaves. And then the first sentence tells you that the spice refers to dried part of the plant, leaves, talking about seasoning and flavoring. Okay, then, jang, you have an empty space over here. Okay, never mind. Then you continue first. Spices are normally sold in dried form. Okay, so he's talking about spices, while herbs can either be fresh or dried. So he's talking about herbs. So basically, in this whole sentence, it's telling me about two things. All right, first talking about spice and then gives examples and talks about herbs and what herbs are, the leafy parts. All right, so even I think this is a very good paragraph because it teaches me the differences between what spices are and what herbs are. So not only you're reading something for yourself, but you're also reading general knowledge. Next time you'll be able to explain to your parents, to your mom, or any cook, the differences between a spice and herbs. All right, so now let's look at the question here. Number 22 is blank. So it stops here where it says what spices are. And then later on, it tells you about how spices are sold in dried form, and then herbs could be fresh. Okay, now let's go back to the answer option. Okay. My face is frozen, but I think it doesn't matter. You just need to listen to my voice because my face is like all frozen up already in the screen. Okay, all right. So let's look at the question again. You can see over here. So earlier we were talking about the differences between spices and herbs. Okay. We just go through very quickly again, one by one. So earlier we already noted that G is for question number 21 already. All right. You can just put it here first. Maybe it's not the right answer, but it's okay. You just put your answer first and then you take it out. Because you have already taken it out, you don't have to read it again, unless if you feel that it could be the answer again later on. All right, so let's look from A to F. Again, this is about storage. Okay, nothing about spices and herbs. It's not talking about spices, about the diet quality, but it's only focusing on spices. And then here it says here spices, use it in batches so that they maintain freshness. The focus here is on freshness. So nothing about being fresh earlier. It's just talking about what herbs are and examples of spices. So, okay, this one grinding also is nothing to do. Grinding is just grinding, nothing to do. And then another way to distinguish, spices and herbs is how they are used in cooking. Earlier, remember the sentence was talking about cooking, isn't it? You have that word. The first sentence of the paragraph was talking about cooking, and then you have the keywords here, spices and herbs, and you have here distinguish, and you have I wrote here, the differences between spices and. So this is probably the answer for question number 22, which talks about the differences between spices and herbs. And what is it again? If you all remember, spices are all the other parts of the tree. Herbs are just the leaves. Now you know. All right. Okay. So I think this paragraph is quite easy. It's pretty straightforward. Just need to know the differences. Okay. Now we move on to the next paragraph. Okay. So it is an undeniable fact. Is it showing? Yeah. That using spices in our cuisines really enhances their flavor. Okay, something to do with flavor and using it in our cuisine. Okay, so maybe this whole thing is talking about how people can use spice to enhance the flavor of food. However, okay, let's look at this part. However, one thing to be mindful of when cooking with spices is that spices start to lose their flavor when they are ground. Do you remember earlier in the question? Something about grinding and grounding something. What's the meaning of grinding or grounding something? That means you actually smash them up together. Smash them into powder form or smash them until it becomes very soft. You grind the whole thing. All right. Usually in powder form lah. All right. Flatten it and all that. So let's continue. So whenever possible, it is best to grind the spices. Okay, you have the word grinding and the word grind appear here again. And then even if you don't know the meaning of the word, like I told you, MUET isn't a bad guy. They will help you. So they actually gave you the clue here. Example, to turn them into powder. So now you know the meaning of ground or grind. That means turning them into powder. Okay, just before using them. All right, then you have empty space here. Okay, don't run over to the answer option yet. Just read the whole thing first. All right, to see what else it says about grinding. It says here, you might even consider getting a small pepper grinder. Okay, for the purpose of grinding your spices too. Okay, wait, before that, you look at the previous sentence again. It says it is best to grind them before using. And then blank, and then suddenly it says here, you might consider getting a small pepper grinder for the purpose of grinding your spices. Okay, so you know something that you should grind it, and then it gives you an option, a suggestion. You can use a small pepper grinder. And then continue. If you do decide to use a coffee grinder instead, okay, again, another word on grinding, you might want to use one only for spices and one for coffee beans so as not to accidentally flavor your morning brew. Nevertheless, having your morning brew with an extra flavor is not a bad thing at all, as Indian chai tea is actually made by using black tea flavored with a blend of ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, black pepper, and clove. All right, I don't know if you guys have tasted before Indian chai tea, but it's actually very interesting. It's not just normal tea or even chai coffee. I think they do have this, they call it chai actually means tea, but they have spiced coffee as well. And these kind of teas, right, and coffee, they are actually very, very interesting because it's not just plain tea that you're drinking, but they will put all these kind of spices inside: ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, black pepper. So the taste is very unique. It's very sharp. Sometimes it's sweet smelling, and it really wakes you up to a whole different world. So if let's say you have never tried this chai tea before, I suggest, if you have a chance, try to order. I won't guarantee it's not for everybody. I won't guarantee that you may like it because it's something very unique and special. And not everyone can get used to it. But among friends, maybe you're sitting together at the table. All of you can maybe just order one tea, perhaps. Try it together. Just so that you have tried it before in your life. Otherwise, people ask you, "Hey, have you tried this chai tea?" And you're like, "No." And then you don't really know what people are talking about. Whereas if you have tried it before in your life, and then you'll be like, yes, I have tried it before. Yes, it's very interesting. At least you have a certain knowledge of what this chai tea is going to be about. All right. Okay, so coming back to here now, it's talking about grinding spices, and then it's talking about grinding and getting a small pepper grinder. So now let's see what this answer option has to offer us. Okay, all right. There are two parts over here in D and E, which talks about grinding. In order to do this, you can use a coffee grinder or mortar and pestle in order to do this. The next one. If grinding your own spices isn't possible, try to use alternative ingredients. Okay. All right. This is talking about using something else already, apart from spices. All right. Okay, something a bit weird about this question because it's a bit off, this answer here. So if you compare between these two, if you can refer to the previous to the text previously, when you're doing this text, right? Of course, now I'm only showing you one by one. I'm showing you either the answer or I'm showing you either the text. But if let's say you can put both side by side together, then you can see and let your eyes move between the answer and the text at the same time. So right now, since we can't do this, you can just try to remember what we've read. So over here, earlier I talked to you about grinding the coffee, and if you remember in the previous sentence, it tells you that you need to grind it into powder. So I would say that between these two, E looks a bit more wrong. D looks a bit more accurate because it says in the previous sentence, it says you need to grind the powder. So you continue by saying, in order to do this, you use a coffee grinder. All right. Whereas we go back to the question again. It says you need to grind it into powder. And then you put here, if grinding isn't possible, try to use alternative ingredients. Okay, nothing wrong with E, but if you go back to the question again, let me just show you the question again. You see, in this question, it says here, you need to grind it. All right, so one way to do it is to use a coffee grinder. Okay, whereas and then you continue, you can even consider getting a small pepper grinder. If you chose the other option, which is E, which says that you can use a different ingredient, it is totally out of this whole text. All right, you go back to here, this sentence is here, whenever possible, it's best to grind before using. All right. If you cannot use different ingredients, then you continue here. You might consider getting a small pepper grinder for the purpose of grinding your spices too. Okay, it's still focused on spices. It's not saying anything about different ingredients. So if you look back at the previous answer, between D and E, let me just show to you again. Okay, when it comes to text like this, you have to always move forward and backward between the text and the answer option. Okay, so if you see here again, the best would be D lah, 23, because E sounds more wrong. It's talking about alternative ingredients, which is totally irrelevant. The whole text is talking about spice, not talking about alternative ingredients. Okay, all right, now let's move on. Hang in there. Okay, all right, let's go to the next. The final part of the text. Okay, the final two paragraphs. one thing that we all wonder is whether spices expire. Okay. Now, so this is going to focus on something about whether spices expire or not. So probably something about how to keep it, how to make it well and all that. Okay, so let's continue. It says here, while spices do not actually spoil or rot, they will lose their flavor over time. All right, so that means, yeah, they will still lose their flavor in a way they expire lah. So as spices are generally used to enhance the flavor of our food, it is best to use them within a certain period of time. All right, so use it best at a certain period of time. Certain period of time. Okay, then blank already. Okay, so as a general rule, ground spices can last for up to 3 years if stored appropriately. Okay, and whole dry spices for 4 years. And ideally, airtight jars made out of glass are best suited to preserve their flavor. Okay, then another blank over here. Hence, keeping jars of spices next to your stove will significantly reduce their useful life. Okay, then you have the word hence over here. That means something here needs to connect to this sentence. You need to do something here, and or something happens over here, and therefore, if you don't do this something or whatever that happens over here will cause this. Hence, if you keep it right to your stove, it will reduce their useful life. Okay, but we won't focus on this part yet. We go back to here first. Okay, here is talking about spices that expire, spices that lose their flavor over time, and then we should use them within a certain period of time. Okay, now let's go and look at the options. Okay, all right. Something, if you look at it, they also last longer when stored in a cool, dry location. Okay, this one is about storage. Earlier talking about storage, isn't it? But then we're talking about making it last longer and all that. And look at this next one. Use spices. Spices also improve diet quality by making food tasty. This one nothing to do. This one has to do with improving diet and making the food tasty. So B is probably not relevant at the moment. Then you have here, use spices in batches so they maintain freshness. Okay, this is probably use spices. I remember just now in the text, I don't know if you still remember, but it was talking about how you can use the spices quickly, isn't it? It says that the spices can expire, but then if you keep it very long, it will lose its freshness. So therefore, we must use them. And then you come to over here, this part, use them in batches so that they maintain freshness. Okay, so it's possible that this is the answer. Okay, this one is focusing more on storage. But you remember in the paragraph, there are 2 empty blanks. So the second part of the blank, remember just now I showed you the word hence, right? Hence, you need to store somewhere so that it will be more fresh. All right. So actually, I can sort of guess the answers for those two without looking back at the text again really. But just to keep your memory in, okay, you remember option A is about storing in a cool, dry location. Option C is about using them so that they maintain the freshness. Okay, let's go back to the question again. Okay. All right. So as spices are generally used to enhance the flavor of a food, it's best to use them within a certain period of time. Immediately, this is something about using them in a certain period of time. So the answer would be just now C, which is use it. Use it in batches to maintain their freshness. So you have the word use and you have the word using it to maintain freshness so that they will not lose their flavor over time. So the answer would be just now. I will write it down later when we go back to it. Okay, so let's see. And then you come to here. If you remember earlier, option A is talking about storing it in a cool, dry location. So that will probably be it because this is talking about storage. All right. So how do you keep them? You store it in airtight jars made of glass, and then you must store it in a cool, dry place so that it will be fresh lah. And then this is the what we call the consequence. If you keep it right next to your stove, it will reduce the useful life, because it's telling you if you keep it there at the stove, which is hot, ah, it will definitely spoil. So this is the consequence. All right. So this would be answer number for alphabet letter A. Okay. I hope that you can follow lah. But anyway, I think you get a gist of it already. Identifying what are the keywords inside the text and then looking for the answer that matches the idea. Okay, final one. So spices are still widely used in modern times, as there's a growing evidence that supports the health benefits of using spices in our food. So now it's going to focus on the food already. So research shows that spices and herbs may be beneficial to our body in areas such as heart, liver, and brain. Okay, it's telling about how it is beneficial to our body. All right, then thus, thus, healthy meals can be made more acceptable to consumers. Okay, so something missing here, thus. So again, you have this word here. This again tells you there's something that's happening over here that gives this as a result. This is a result of it, or the consequence. So the result is healthy meals can be made more acceptable. All right. Very funny here, the word acceptable. That means you're saying if you use herbs and spices, maybe it's not very acceptable. That means maybe it doesn't taste very nice. Because it's over here, it's saying what? If you do something here, it will be more acceptable. So you're saying maybe before that, not acceptable, is it? All right, let's go and look at the answer option again. Okay, so now, just now, C is 24, 25. Now you're left with only two more answers. So spices also improve the quality of by making the food tasty. Okay, something about the food and healthy food. Earlier, if you remember, there was something about healthy food. And then this one, E, is about grinding, which is not relevant in the whole paragraph. So you're left with this last one, and this will be answer number 26. Clear, all correct. I hope that all of you managed to get this so far. It's actually not very difficult, but it can be very tricky if you're not focused and if you just choose the answers by simply by using your feeling. You can't use your feeling here. Of course, you can use your feeling, maybe perhaps part of it, maybe a 20% or 30% of it, but for the rest of it, you need to analyze the whole text. You need to analyze what the idea of the whole text is about and use the clues as I showed to you earlier. So if let's say you need to revise, you can always scroll back in your YouTube channel, go back to the previous part, and then after that, look again one by one, the clues that I have underlined that shows you which is the correct answer. Okay, all right. So this is the first part of my sharing, which focuses on part 5, which is the get text. Now I'm going to continue to talk more about the other parts of the text. I hope that you can hang in there. Perhaps you can take a sip of water to freshen up yourself, or perhaps you can pause the video for a while, close your eyes, just to let whatever I shared with you sink in before you move on to the next part of the text. All right. So in this next part, which I'm going to show you now, it's going to be sharing about the overall general skills and strategies to tackle the texts which are talking about tool reviews. And this strategy will also be the similar strategy that can be used for part 6, part 7, and for all the other parts of the MUET paper as well. All right, so I hope that you'll be able to follow. Is it sharing already? Okay.
For this part of the reading paper, besides identifying main ideas and supporting details as presented in the previous session, you'll be required to compare and evaluate the information from two different texts as well. Here, you'll need to determine how those two texts are similar or different from each other. Let me show you the format to give you an idea of this section. Here in this part, you're given the first text. Then, the next two questions are based on the first text. Then, this is the second text. And the next two more questions, as you can see over here, are based on the second text. Then the last two questions are based on both texts. Here, I would like you to take note that both texts are usually thematically linked. This means both of them will have the same idea or the same topic together. And to help you answer, you will first need to initially find out what is the text about, what is the main topic about. So for this, you can usually find it from the question itself at the top of the text. Like over here, it says, read two texts about a film art director. So you know that the text or the topic is going to talk about somebody who is a film art director. Then as you're reading, you also need to determine the purpose of the text. This question is usually asked towards the end after you have answered questions from each text individually. So you usually need to find out whether they have the same viewpoint or different viewpoint of the same topic. So this means that do they agree or disagree with each other on the same issue? So you can highlight the words that show the same and show contrast in both texts in order for you to answer the question. Usually the kind of question that they will ask is to ask you, what does this text from, what does the text one say about this issue compared to text two, something like that, okay? All right. So the questions will test your skills in identifying for main ideas and supporting details, as what was presented earlier. But there are also other skills included, which are interpreting the text for author's intention, attitudes, and style. And these are some of the kinds of questions that are asked. Sometimes they will ask you, this line is used by the writer to emphasize what? Or another one, it says here, what's the writer's attitude towards the difficulties faced by this person? Was his attitude critical or objective or indifferent? So please take note of the meanings of these different words so that you will know what's the difference between these as you search for the answers based on the clue or what the author says or means inside those texts. So another kind of question that is also similar that they like to ask is also to determine the author's writing purpose, such as was the writer trying to inform you about something, or was he trying to advise you about something, or was he trying to warn you against something? Was he trying to persuade you to buy something or to do something or to explain some kind of phenomenon to you or to entertain you? That means after you read, you feel like, wow, this is such a nice story. You feel entertained, all right? Or to instruct you to do something, give you some kind of order, or instructions one by one, or to describe some kind of phenomenon as well. So sometimes this question will appear in this part 4 of the text as well, to ask you about the purpose for both of the texts. Between text 1 and text 2, compare what's the purpose for each. All right, so this is an example of another one to ask you, why did the writer use this phrase? Or why did this person say this? All right, to demonstrate, to compare, to illustrate, to emphasize. Okay, so I don't have time to really go through each of these terms, but one tip for you to be able to recognize the author purpose is that while you read, you ask yourself, what is the author trying to say to me here? All right, how do I feel after reading it? So is it advising me about something, or just giving me some information, or instructing me to do something? Then you choose the appropriate answer based on some of the keywords and based on how you feel after reading it. Okay, so now, before we continue, there are just a few tips that I would like to highlight to you so that you're able to approach the text better. The first thing is to always read the questions first before you begin. All right, when you're sitting for any exam, okay, what do you do first? Let's say you're sitting for your science or maths paper. What you do is you always try to do some past year questions first, right? Before you actually go for the exam, isn't it? So the similar concept applies here. Before you actually attempt a text, read through the questions first. So the whole idea is not for you to actually understand the question or memorize the question. No, actually, the whole idea is so that you can have an idea of what the text is going to ask you, a little bit of background, so that it's easier for you to understand the text. Otherwise, you'll be reading the text just blankly, and then you don't even know what to focus on and things like that. All right. But if you scan through the questions first quickly, then you'll be able to see, oh, okay, so this text is about something, right? Or it's related to this question. And then you just scan through quickly. It's not important for you to memorize what the question is saying. So just read the questions and scan quickly. All right. And then while you're reading the questions, identify and underline maybe one or two keywords in the question. That's all, just to get an idea. All right. And then moving on to the next step, when you move to the paragraphs, after reading the questions, right, you move to the paragraphs or the text to read, use a pen to help you to read. Okay. This will be able to help you to read faster. And then it helps your eyes to focus on the words as well. You don't need to exactly understand every single thing you read. All right. You just read. Try it with and without the pen. See if it helps you or not. And then, of course, while you're reading, you identify and underline at least one keyword that you understand. Okay, ask yourself this question. What do you think is the main message of the paragraph? Usually, the main message will appear in the first line of the paragraph, which is the topic sentence of the paragraph. So that topic sentence will be able to help you understand what this whole paragraph is talking about. And that's enough. All right? You don't have to worry about any words that you don't understand or any idea or specific details. You don't have to worry about it. You only worry about it if the questions ask you later. Then you have to read in specific detail of that particular sentence, of that particular section that is related to the question. So what is that whole paragraph trying to tell me? Then next one, what's the whole paragraph trying to tell me? Then next one. There's no right or wrong answer. It's based on what you understand. And usually, this is actually very important because the question will ask you overall, what is the main idea of that paragraph? What is it actually trying to say to you? Okay, so let's try the tips that I've given you earlier. We will attempt two previous texts shown to you about the film art directors. And this text was taken from the most recent MUET in October session 2. Okay, to start, so we don't know what the text is about yet. We scan the questions first. All right, so the question says here, the writer begins the article by describing something. Remember earlier I told you as you're reading, use a pencil or a pen to help you highlight and to focus your eyes. So the same goes for question as well. You want to highlight or underline the keywords that tells you that this is what it wants you to focus on. So now here we know that it's asking you to watch out for how the writer begins the article. So by describing something, all right, so what does it describe? You don't have to read the options yet. Remember earlier I told you the main aim of reading the question first is to find out or to give you an idea of what the whole text is about and to help you to know where to focus. So now we know, okay, somewhere at the beginning. And then we move on to the next question. It says here, which of the following describes Riley? So we don't know who this Riley is, but we know that there'll be a person named Riley. It could be the film art director that was described earlier. So we want to know, as we read, how does it describe her? Okay, so now we move on to the passage. Let's read together. Okay, and as we read, like I mentioned, if there are any words that jump out to you, we underline. So for 5 years, Deborah Riley has worked on the creation of 7 kingdoms. Okay, so she has worked on the creation of 7 kingdoms in Game of Thrones. All right, so now from this first text, we know that this person has worked to create some kingdom inside Game of Thrones lah. So if some of you all follow some of these Netflix shows and things like that, you would know that Game of Thrones is some kind of movie or some kind of series in the television. And it says here, she has traveled to ancient cities, shivered through icy winters, stared down dragons. Wow, stared down dragons. And then feeling dead on her feet, she is pushed through long hours to create a world that has ruled the small screen for 8 seasons. All right, so it seems that on this second part of the sentence, it shows that, it has not been easy for her. The words that I highlighted or underlined over here shows that, that she's had quite a tough time lah, to shiver through icy winters, feeling dead and things like that. It's not been easy to create this seven kingdom. And it has been a dream come true for her. Okay, what kind of dream? Who has worked as the production of designer on the hit HBO series Game of Thrones since 2013. All right, so we know here it's been difficult, but it's still a dream come true for her. And in that time, the well-known designer has won 4 Emmy Awards. All right, so basically from this first part here, we know that she worked on this Game of Thrones movie, and it's not been very easy for her, but it's still a dream come true. All right, so now we go on to the next one. But for Riley and her colleagues, the world of Westeros is far from fantasy. Okay, so I underline the word far, but if let's say inside this sentence, another word seems to jump out on you, you just underline, doesn't matter. Like I mentioned earlier, there are no right or wrong answers. Okay, and then this is what she says. The more the audience believes in the world of the show, the more they believe in dragons. Okay, something about believing lah. And the art department and I tried to make all of the sets as realistic as possible by making sure that there was a heaviness and edge to the spaces. By this all means nothing. But this all means nothing if the costumes do not work. And seeing the characters walk onto a set is when it really comes alive. Okay, so for her, what we know is that it has been a lot of hard work for her to make everything in the set realistic in the Game of Thrones movie. And then she believes that, the costumes must be very important because it makes the movie come alive. All right, so far we know that it's not been easy, but she tries to make it realistic. Okay, so next, when you read, again, as usual, underline to help you understand the text. So Riley's breakthrough into film came in the 1990s when she was hired as a set designer for The Matrix. Okay, so we find out that, she was hired as a set designer for this thing, and the visual effects of the film won 4 Academy Awards. Okay, fine. All right. Then Riley went on to work on a number of high-profile films, including Anna and the King, 21 Grams, and Moulin Rouge. All right, so she's worked on these films, and her success saw her selected as the art director for the Sydney Olympic Games. Okay, so she became an art director as well. And events like the Olympics tend to be about the identity of the place that they are held in. All right, so something about events, something about identity. There's a huge responsibility to get the tone correct. All right, so something about getting the tone correct. Again, earlier, this is something about the art, that being an art director. So something from there, that it's something about creating a set, making a set look real inside a film and also in events like this. So she wants to make the tone correct and to represent the history, thoughts, and ideas of the nation. This was during the Olympic Games. Okay, if let's say you don't really understand what you're reading so far, it doesn't matter. All right, like I told you, you only need to know what that part of the text really says if you need to answer the question. Otherwise, what you need to know is just a basic idea of what the whole text says. And if the question asks you, then you focus on that certain part that you need to really understand. Otherwise, all the other parts are actually not very serious if you don't really understand what it's saying. All right, so don't worry so much about it. You just continue. Okay, then we move on to the next one. So now again, it continues about Riley's career path. It says that it could have been a different one. And then it all started soon after she completed her Bachelor of Design Studies at University of Queensland in Australia, 1993. So this is design studies, something about design. And she said, I had every intention of graduating from the full architecture course. All right, so now we know this is something about architecture, her design studies, which is slightly different from what she's doing. Hers is a set design. But the most instrumental subject for me was behavior and environmental studies. Okay, fine. Then it boils down to the psychology of space. And I can honestly say that I use the basic principles at work today. So she has, what we know is she has applied something from her Bachelor of Design Studies into work. And she loves this subject, behavior and environmental studies. Okay. But it was when she saw Batman Returns, okay, so she saw this movie, that she first realized someone was responsible for designing the sets. Then Riley then set her sights on studying another degree in performing arts at NIDA. So this is probably an institution where people study performing arts, and was surprised when she got accepted because she had no experience in theatre. So she got accepted into this performing arts at this center here, NIDA. Okay, all right. So now we know that this story is about Riley and about how her career started. This was in paragraph 5 and 6, and then earlier talks about the struggles that she had trying to make the set for Game of Thrones, and also we find out a bit about the other high-profile films that she did over here. All right, in her career. So now you know. Okay, this part is talking about Riley's career. So you're done reading the text. What do you do next? After reading, go back and look at the questions again, of course. And then what do you do after you look at the questions? This is the third tip. Search for the idea or keyword in the text. Use the scanning method and then underline where you think the idea is. So you look at the question and then you find the idea of the question in the text. At each question you got to look at the specific sentence that has the answer. You cannot look at the whole paragraph and guess the answer because it's going to make it very difficult. So when you go through the text later on, look at one question and then look at one section of the sentence. All right. Then look at the question again to confirm and select the matching answer. Then look at the next question. Then look at the next section of sentences. Then look again to confirm and select. Then it'll be easier. And the section is just 1 or 2 sentences usually. That's all. All right. So let us begin analyzing the question again in detail. So the writer begins the article. So after you have found out and read through the article and know what the article is about, then you go to the section of the question where it asks you. So here it wants to know how this Riley begins. So before you actually go back to the text, read through each of the options first to see which part of the text matches each of the option. So it says here in the first option A, something about the history of 7 kingdoms. Okay, so we find out, does the first part of the article talks about history? Okay, or is it talking about her dreams when she was designing the set? Or does it talk about the challenges that she faced when designing the set? Okay, all right, so is it history, her dream, or the challenges? And then if you can remember just now when I told you when we were reading through, all these kind of words, all right, traveling to ancient cities, shivering through, looking at dragons. Of course, this is not real. This is in literal terms, looking at maybe troubles or looking at danger, feeling dead on the feet, long hours. So we know that it has not been easy. All these can refer to the term challenge. All right. Whereas if let's say you look at the previous question here, it says here history. Is there anything about the history of the 7 kingdoms or her dream? Although you look back at the text, this one talks about the challenges, all right? And there is a word here that says, it's a dream come true for her. But this is just one sentence that talks about her dream and when she worked as a production designer. And that's all. But the main bulk of it was to tell you how difficult it was for her to actually create the set. And it was a dream come true only, but it wasn't talking about her dream all the time. And also over here, there was nothing about the history of the 7 kingdoms in the Game of Thrones. All right, so here we can safely say that it is not about history. It is not about her dream when designing the set. It is about the challenges that she faced. So C is the answer for this first one. Okay, and then next one, which one describes her? So again, we look at each of the option. Which one is the one that matches the ideas inside the text? So first, is it she got the idea to learn about set design from one of the movies she watched. All right. So was there something that made her feel that, okay, I want to do something about set design? Or does she know that studying in this institution, NIDA, would be good for her career? Or is it she quit her architecture degree to study the design degree? All right. So did she get the idea to learn about a movie from a movie? Or she knows that studying here would be good for her? Or did she quit? So one by one, you check against the text. All right. So we go to the part of the text that talks a bit about this, about movie, Nida, and how she quit her architecture degree. So we can find this all in the last few paragraphs. At first, it talks about what? Okay, we look at the last one. She saw this Batman Returns, all right? And then she wanted to study another degree at this place, all right? So she saw a movie and then she realized that she wanted to study another degree. So it's possible that it could be A. If you go back to the question again, okay? So she had the idea because of one of the movies that she watched. Or the second one, does she know that it would be good for her career or not? Did she actually know that when she went to this place, it would be good? Actually, it doesn't say that she knows it. It just says here that she went to study at this place. And she didn't know why, because she was surprised when she got accepted. So she didn't know actually. She was just like trying out because she was inspired to learn about set design. And then finally, did she quit her architecture degree to study a design degree? Let's see, did she quit or not? All right, it started after she completed her bachelor. So actually, no, she did not quit. She actually completed it lah. All right, so this is for question number 16. What you can do is, as you find and match the answers, you can actually write down the number of where you found the answers from, so that, it will confirm the answer that matches together with the part where you got the answer from. So nobody can actually argue with you that your answer was wrong because the proof is there, and you have the number to prove to you. So now let's look at the next text of the same part. All right, and as usual, we look at the question first, skim and scan quickly to see what the question says and to make you focus on the whole text later on. So now here it says here, in paragraphs 1 and 2, which sentence most clearly states the writer's opinion? So now you want to find out the opinion. What is the writer's opinion about this Game of Thrones series? Okay, then what will Riley do with the Games of Thrones set? Okay, so something about opinion and something about the set. Okay, now we move on to the text. The text, second text now, which you can see it has the same theme. Earlier theme was talking about Riley, talking about Game of Thrones. This second text as well, about Riley and about Game of Thrones. So now you read this, and then later on, the next two questions is going to ask you to compare. But not yet lah. We have to deal with these two questions first. Okay, so it says here, the epic fantasy series Game of Thrones was based on author George R.R. Martin's novel series, A Song of Ice and Fire. Okay, so we know that this epic series, is based on this author. Maybe not very important this information, but you just read through. So it's about the battle to rule over the kingdom of Westeros. Okay, some kind of battle, and there has never been quite a show like the Game of Thrones. Okay, so it says here, wow, the show must be quite fantastic lah. There's never been one like it. And since its first season in 2011, the show has won 38 Emmys. Won a lot of awards. Okay, that's more than Frasier, The Simpsons, and Breaking Bad. And there is a fierce anticipation, for the 8th and final season, already due to be released next year. Okay, so a lot of people, they are waiting for the final season. And in the middle of TV's biggest show is Australia's Deborah Riley, the introduction of this person that was earlier mentioned in the previous text. So earlier this year, she won her 4th Emmy for her work as production designer on HBO's blockbuster series. So again, winning some Emmy awards for herself. Okay, let's continue. So such is the hunger for fans to know the show's secrets. Who will sit on the Iron Throne? That drones and even ultralight aircrafts have been spotted flying over the sets in Northern Ireland. Wow, so here we can see that the fans are so hungry to know what's going to happen at the end of the final season that they even send drones, to fly over to the set to go and spy to see what will happen. But today, its delicious vegan fare rather than season spoilers on the table, as Riley introduces me to one of her favorite restaurants, OM Vegan Kitchen in Surrey Hills. All right, so we know that what happens here is that the writer has actually met Riley, all right, and is eating. This Riley introduced her to one of the favorite restaurants and is probably eating with Riley. And this writer, said, I select brown rice, potatoes, and a vegan masamam curry. And are you sure you've got enough? Riley asked solicitously. All right. Okay. Don't worry if, let's say, you don't know the meaning of the word. Like I mentioned earlier, if, let's say, the sentence or the question asks you the meaning of the word, then only you start worrying. Then you start guessing what you think the meaning is. Otherwise, what you can do is you can just gloss over the word. You can guess the meaning based on the context that is given, and then that's it. You don't have to worry so much about it. So from here, we know that, in this context, Riley asked, are you sure it's enough or not? So she asked solicitously. So that means probably that she's actually worried or concerned, asked in a concerned way, or in a worried way, whether this writer has enough or not. So she asked before selecting a bit of everything from the buffet, followed by a green yogi smoothie. All right. Okay. So never mind. Let's continue. So now we just know that the writer is eating with Riley. That's the main important part of this whole paragraph. Okay. Then next, as we sit in the park and tuck in, Riley finally reveals that on her last day on Game of Thrones, July 6th, the day her watch had ended, all right, was really emotional. So this is her last day. It was so emotional for her because it meant saying goodbye to so many people that she has worked with for the 5.5 years. Okay, fine. Then in person, Riley radiates warmth and a fierce intelligence. A graduate of dramatic art design from Sydney NIDA, Riley's early work included working as a set director on The Matrix. Okay, so you may find that maybe some of the ideas here is repetitive to what was in the previous text. But remember, it is supposed to be about one text about the same theme, which may have similar things or different things. I think when I was reading to you, you can see already some things appear familiar from the previous text. Some things are new ideas. So these will be asked later on as you compare the ideas from both texts to answer the next two questions about the two of them. All right. Okay, but coming back to here first, let's continue with the text. So, but she says working with the directors of 3 particular projects helped prepare her for working on Game of Thrones, Moulin Rouge, 21 Grams, and the Sydney Olympics. Okay, so now we know that she's again, this part is working about being working as a set director in this Matrix movie first, and it helped her for these other movies later on. Okay, now let's continue. So it continues to say here, Riley moved to LA in 2008. So now we know this is what happens to her in her life, right in the middle of the global financial crisis. So after 5 tough years, she had a breakthrough. Okay, so something that was successful for her. All right, as she was working when HBO called and said, we think you should interview for this job. And her audition process lasted about a month. If there was anything that had my DNA on it, it was the Game of Thrones. All right. So we know that after she graduated and she worked on other movies, she had this huge opportunity to work on this movie called The Game of Thrones. Okay. So the former architecture student was able to cherry pick from real life history for inspiration. So she took from real life history, we know from here, to help her to be inspired to work on the movie. And then it says that you should be able to smell a set. It should feel so real, she told Collective Hub magazine. As part of the show's success is its ability to convince viewers that both the show's human dramas as well as its dragons and ice walls are real. Okay, so she tries to convince the viewers and she says that, this is what makes the show success. So incidentally, what will happen to all the sets now that the filming is over? So what will happen? So we are madly cataloging everything at the end of the show. So one day, the public will be able to see them. Okay, so she wants the public to be able to see the catalog of everything. So that's what she says. As we are gradually clearing the stages, but they're also clearing, and the studios, and the studios were sort of closing down. That was very sad as well. But she also felt very sad, watching things go into the skip that had sat there for years. Okay, now let's go back to the questions. So number 17 here, which sentence most clearly states the writer's opinion? All right. So so all these sentences actually appear inside the text. All right. So the question wants you to find out which one states the opinion. Is it there has never been quite a show, or the opinion is it's a battle to rule, or is the opinion saying that it's the first season? Okay. So which one sounds more like the opinion of this series? So earlier that one, there has never been quite a show. Okay, that one was here. There has never been quite a show. Shows you, okay, wow, okay. And then that one, it's about a battle to rule over the kingdom. And then the other one, it says it was based on the series, was it? Since its first season, the show has won 38 Emmys. Okay, the show has won. All right. Which one sounds more like an opinion to you? All right, opinion is what that person feels about the game of shows. So if you look at C and B, and what you can see here is that this one looks a bit more wrong lah. This is not this is definitely not opinion. This is showing you some fact that in this first season it has won 38 Emmys. So it doesn't sound like an opinion. All right, and then it sounds like a description. It is about the battle. It sounds like a description about the series. So it is not really some kind of opinion that she is talking about. So that means A should probably be the final answer. She's saying that, wow, it has never been a show quite like this show. Never been a show quite like this show reveals that, this show is awesome lah. Okay. There is none like it. None like this show. Never a show has been done that is so wonderful like this. Okay. All right. Now let's move on to the next one now. So the answer here will be A. Okay. So what will Riley do with the Games of Thrones sets? So just now we found out somewhere at the end about what she was going to do there. Is she going to put it in a gallery, or throw it away, or use it for another movie? So let's go back to that part of the paragraph which tells you about what she wants to do. Here. So what will happen to all the sets now that filming is over? So what is she going to do about it? So she's cataloging them, okay, so that the public will be able to see them. All right. So this sounds like that part of the answer here. She'll put it into a gallery. So this one maybe be an answer lah. All right. Doesn't say that she's going to throw it away yet. Doesn't say that she's going to use it for another movie. But before you choose the answer, don't fall into the trap. Read further. Okay, so she wants the public to see them. And then she says, as we are gradually clearing the stages and the studios were sort of closing down, that was very sad as well. Okay, so she's trying to catalog everything. Up here, you see here earlier, she tries to put everything, catalog it, all right? But she's also clearing the stage at the same time to make the studio close down. And she said she's also very sad because she watches the things go into the skip that had sat there for years. Okay, so watching things going into the skip. Okay, what does it mean by go into the skip? Okay, this is actually a vocabulary question. Skip actually means something, This is a picture of what we call a skip. This box here that shows you a place that people put rubbish in. So this yellow box is actually called a skip. I think you've seen this box before in some construction places where people do renovation. Usually they'll put a box out there for people to throw a lot of things. So this box is actually known as a skip. So when she watches the things to go into the skip, she felt sad. That means watching the things go into the rubbish bin. So that means actually that you see, we go back to the question. It says here, what will she do with the set? All right. Is she going to put it in a gallery or throw away most of it? You have the word most, or use it for another movie. We know that she didn't say anything about using it for another movie. And then it says here that, she's going to put in a gallery. But is she also going to throw away most of it? So actually, without me telling you the answer, you know already, yeah. Actually, the second option looks better. Okay, the first option looks more wrong because it says here, yes, although she's going to catalog everything, but maybe not everything. And this is about the set. It's asking about the set. All right, the set includes the stage or the studio, which will all go into the skip, which I showed you earlier. So that makes her feel very sad. So now you know that the answer is probably B here lah. It's going to be thrown away, most of it, and not to put in a gallery. Most of it. Only some special ones will be put in the gallery. Okay. So let's go now to the question. This part which will ask you for both text 1 and text 2. So this is when the skill of comparing comes in. So now we look at the question. What is the central idea for both text 1 and text 2? So now it's going to ask you for both of these. So you have to find which is similar for both of these. All right. So is the main idea? This is talking about the main idea, So is it about the Emmy Awards? All right. So is the text talking mainly about the Emmy Awards only? So no, Emmy Awards, this is too specific already. It's not talking about the awards and this award, that award. All right. The Emmy Awards, if you remember what we read earlier, it's only that small section inside the sentence. That's all. So cannot. All right. So the efforts put in to make Game of Thrones sets look real. Okay, maybe something about the effort that was put in to make it look real and good lah. How much effort she puts in, the challenges she faced and all that. And the importance of being guided by Game of Thrones famous directors. Was there anything that talks about some director helping her? Not really. If you can remember what you read earlier, it was mainly talking about what she did, the things that she did. She went to university to go and study and, she go and research about this and that to make the set look real in both text 1 and text 2. It says here again the central idea. So if you go back to text 1 and text 2, the text 1 was talking about the challenges and all that, studying. The text 2 was talking about all the effort that she has put in. So if you were to compare among all these, actually, even if you're not sure, even if you're not sure if B is the correct answer, but there's this new technique that I want to teach you all later, which is called choosing the wrong answer method. Which one looks more wrong to you? So this one, like I said earlier, it's too specific. So most probably it's not the answer. All right. And then here, the importance of being guided, there's nothing talking about director as well. So the only one left is this answer the effort that is put in. All right. Even though it may not look real to you, you may not find, that the idea for text 2 talks much about the effort, but then because the other two are more wrong, so you have B. Okay. And then the next one, what are the main distinguishing features of text 1 and text 2? What makes text 1 and text 2 different from each other? All right. So we see here, text 1 discusses Riley's skills. Is it talking about her skills? While text 2 discusses where Riley got her ideas. Okay. All right. About where she got her idea from. Does it say that in text 2? Later we see. Or does it talk about her life before the Game of Thrones? While text 2 discuss what is happening behind the scenes. So what happens, what did she do, in order to build up the scenes? Text 1 discusses her difficulties to enter Nida. Was there anything about her difficulty? There's nothing mentioned much about her difficulty. While text 2 discusses what Riley did before entering. Okay, there's nothing about what she did before entering. For text 2, if you remembered, it talks about what happens at the end of the film industry and what happens during the film industry of doing this whole thing as well. You can look at maybe the screenshot. If you took a screenshot earlier, you can look at it and then you can confirm lah. All right. So this one is probably not, because there's nothing much about the difficulty here and nothing about what she did before entering. Okay. And this one, maybe talk a bit about her skills and where she got. But does it talk about where she got her ideas from or not? All right, so we're not sure whether it's about where she got her ideas from. And then this one talks about her life and what's happening behind the scenes. So now you need to look at text 1 and see whether text 1 looks at the skill or the life. Which one more? And then you look at text 2 and you look at whether text 2 talks about where she got her ideas or what's happening behind the scene. Okay, so we look at text 1 first. So remember earlier text 1, you're trying to see, is it talking about her life or is it talking about her skills? So this one talking about, okay, what she did and all that, all right? And then it became a dream come true for her. And then here again, it talks about what she did all right, to make the set realistic, how it's important for her. and how she wants to make it come alive. All right. And then it talks a bit about her life here, about when the film came, she was hired as set designer. And then she did all these films and also in events in the Olympics. And it talks about her studies inside this university. And then it talks about when she saw this movie, she was inspired. Okay, so it's a bit about her life, isn't it, actually? All right, talking about what happened to her, what she did, throughout her life. And then at the end of it, she got this post to be a film set designer for the Game of Thrones. So it doesn't talk so much about the skills, what she did and all that. So probably about life. So now we look at the second text. So in the second text, you want to find out where she had got her ideas from or what was happening behind the scenes. Okay, so is there anything that tells you about where she get her ideas, Okay, so here it says it has won all these awards, All right, fine. Then it says here, this is the set. They ate at a restaurant, and then her watch has ended, and then she was a graduate from this place, and when she works with all these directors, it helped her to prepare. Okay, and then it says also what happened. She had breakthrough, and then she was interviewed, and then she got this job, and then how it was successful. So what does the idea sound like to you here? Is it about where she got her ideas from mainly, or is it what's happening behind the scenes? That means when she was working on this, what was it? So earlier we mentioned that in text 1 it is more about life. All right. So does it discuss more about what's happening behind the scenes? Probably, maybe. Okay, because it's talking about what happens to her after the set is done, before that, what she has to do, what she has to prepare during the thing. So it's not focusing so much about the idea. Okay, idea sounds a bit more wrong. It's more about the life over here lah. So because this one sounds more wrong, so we don't take this, and then this we don't take, so we are left with B. That's the answer. Okay, what happens if you cannot decide on the answer? I would like to suggest this thing called the wrong answer method. This means that between the two options that you have in front of you, you choose the most wrong looking answer first. All right? And that is the wrong one. Because it's always easier for us to point out something that is wrong than to point out something that is right. Isn't it? It's always easier to find fault with your friends or find out your friends' mistakes than to see the positive side. So it's always like that. The human eye, So when you have two different answers that you're not sure of, I know most of us like to choose which is the best answer. We will see whether this one is better or this one is better. But no, I want you to change your mind. Tell yourself, okay, between the two, which one looks more wrong? Which one looks more funny and weird? So maybe you think, okay, I think this one looks more funny and weird. So maybe the other option looks also not so correct to you, and you're also not sure. But since this one looks more wrong, then I think this one must be the answer. So you select the answer that is left. Okay? So which one looks more wrong? Not which one looks more right. And then you will end up choosing the right one. Because both are going to look right to you. And the answer that looks more right to you may actually be the wrong answer, because they might have put a trap, a keyword there that may seem like the right answer. But this is actually a trap. It's not actually accurate. So choose the one that looks more wrong first. Then the one that is left is the answer. Choose the one that looks like it doesn't fit into the answer scheme. Like, it doesn't fit into the answer. You can't find any clue of it inside the paragraph or any sentence. Nothing inside the text talks about it. So that one is probably the wrong one lah. Okay. So this method actually applies to other subjects as well, to your science subjects and others, because this is a backed up research which has been done by other people to compare two groups of people who are working on this. And they found out that the group which used this wrong answer method were actually more able to get more correct answers compared to the group that uses the best looking answer method. So I'm not sharing with you any bogus tips or whatever, okay? This is based on my own experience and also from research papers that I have read before. So you try this and see. Maybe it will be able to help you answer and get more correct answers, okay? That you understand now a bit about how to search for answers by doing the matching method. Try to match, what the keywords are from this text with the keywords inside the questions. And then also, if let's say you find that, it's difficult for you to differentiate between the answers, use the wrong answer method. All right. If you have any questions, you may type it in the chat box and the chat moderators will get back to you. So now let us try, okay? So as taught earlier, we look at the questions first. So what you can do is you can please screenshot the questions and the text as I display them. This question was actually taken from session 1 of the MUET paper this year. Okay, so the two questions, screenshot. Okay, then this is the first part of the text. This is the text about cultural differences. So this is paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. And you have paragraph 3 and paragraph 4. Please screenshot. Paragraph 5 and paragraph 6. Okay, then we move on to the next two questions for the second text. For question 17 and 18. Okay, then you have the first part, paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 of text 2. Okay, paragraph 3 and paragraph 4 of text 2. Paragraph 5 and paragraph 6. Okay, and then you have the final two questions based on text 1 and text 2. You see again the question, it will ask you, how are text 1 and text 2 similar? And then the two texts suggest what? So you need to find something that is similar between the two of them. So just a final note here and some final tips for all of you. The questions are usually asked according to the order of the text. That means if it's question 1, it'll be somewhere around the top part of the text. If it's question 2, then probably somewhere below the answer for question 1. It will not be very, very far below. And if it's for question 3, it'll be below question 2. The answer for question 3 will not appear before the answer for question 2. So it will be according to the order of the text. Except maybe for questions that ask which of the following is true. In that case, maybe it is throughout the whole text. They will ask you, which of this is true. Then for option A, it may appear in any part of the text. It may be at the top. Then for option B, now the idea may be in the second paragraph. For option C, it may be in another paragraph at the bottom. It will go throughout the whole passage. Which of this is true? All right. So otherwise, it will usually follow according to the order. This same principle applies for the listening paper as well. As you listen to the recording, it will follow according to the order of the questions. All right. And also, remember to use the wrong answer method, especially if all of the options look correct to you. And finally, remember to watch the time. This is very important because you only have 75 minutes and you have 7 texts. So one text is about 10 minutes for you to be able to complete the whole thing. And I think for the part 1 and part 2 of the text, because it's slightly easier and more straightforward, you can spend less time there because you will need more time, especially to spend for part 4 onwards. For part 4, the words may be more complicated, the text may be longer, so you'll need more time there. So watch your time as you're doing. All right? Okay, and my final words for all of you here are read, read, and read. This is in order to help you to get used to the sentence structures and the kinds of words that are commonly used. And then practice, practice, and practice, so that you'll be able to know the questioning style and what kind of traps that the questions lay out. Actually, once you know the method, right, you'll be able to tackle the question. Like earlier I said, and how I pointed out to you one by one. Find out the keyword, find out the place where it is, and then find out the trap. And then try to match. Is it the same or not? All right. If it's not the same, then it's probably not the answer. Actually, this is basically the technique in order for you to answer the question. So you don't actually have to worry too much about getting the answer wrong, as long as the ideas match and you confirm that, okay, this is probably the answer. All right. So I guess that's all for my presentation. Thank you for joining the session. I know it's been very long. Thank you for hanging in there because it has not been easy for you, especially for the reading paper. It's very dry, I know. You need to read through, you need to go through one by one, but I hope that you have gained something from this session. So continue to stay tuned for the next session, which will be presented by the other lecturers, and all the best for your MUET reading paper and also for your other papers as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. O, for your sharing. I gained a well of knowledge from your sharing just now. And then for your guys' information, we're not gonna have Q&A session because our time already dragged. So any question you guys actually can ask below at the comments, and Madam O will answer periodically and personally to you guys. And wait, we're gonna wait for Madam O to come in again for giving her last speech. All right, Madam O. So, do you have any last words to give to all our audience?
Okay, as I've said earlier, just need to read, practice, practice, practice. And as you practice, analyze the answers. Follow all the tips that I've given to you. Look for the ideas and match the words and match the ideas, and you'll be able to get the answer. Remember, the text is not out to get you. The text is not out to trick you. Everything is there. You just need to focus and find out where and what it is, and use your feelings as well when you dive into the text. Yeah. So all the best. I know you all can do it.
Okay, thank you to Madam O for sharing this evening with us. And later, if there are any audience have a question below, we will be pleased for you to answer any of the question below. Okay. So thank you again, and see you soon, Madam.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Hanani.
All right. Thank you, Madam.
Bye.
So, for another 50 minutes for you guys, or actually it's under 50 minutes, we're gonna have another session, which is a motivational talk with our one of alumni that actually get band sick for MUET session 2020 and 2021. So stay tuned, and we will be come back later.